Welcome to our webinar, Disability Teaches Us, Listen and Learn from Students. While you're getting settled in, please know that we have closed captioning on the bottom, which you can enable. And then we'd also invite you to use the chat today, and you can begin by answering this question: what have you learned from students in your life? I'm Carrie Bassis. I'm the director of the Governor's Office of the Education Ombuds. We have a lot of people supporting our team today. The main folks today are Clark Matthews, who is with Rooted in Rights, Kanasa, Anna, and AJ, who are all students from our student video project, the 1 out of 5. And so I'd invite you to use the chat too to check in for attendance for clock hours. You're able to receive 1 free clock hour today if you're an educator. And we also want to invite you to take a moment and make whatever space you're in terms of mind or body comfortable for yourself. And you'll have an opportunity today to listen to some amazing students and ask some questions of your own at the end. And while we're getting started today, I would like to acknowledge that we are on the ancestral lands and traditional territories of the Puget Sound Coast Salish people. And most of us who are part of this team for Disability Teaches Us are in the Seattle metro area. And so when we think about tribal nations, that's what we're thinking about. We also want to encourage you to take a look at OSPI's curriculum, the Since Time Immemorial curriculum that discusses the important contributions of Native and Indigenous people to Washington. So today we're going to do a quick project overview. We'll share some of the student videos and have students do introductions from the project. And then we'll have a panel for 30 minutes, which Clark Matthews from Rooted in Rights will moderate. And then you will have an opportunity to ask questions of the panelists. Here are some of the session goals for today. We're really focused on supporting positive identity development, explaining disability justice and its intersections with other issues, and engaging schools and the full community on disability justice issues. I want to tell you briefly about the 1 out of 5 project, which the Governor's Office of the Education Ombuds, our office, and Rooted in Rights, part of Disability Rights Washington, started a couple years ago. We discovered that the legislature had required schools to teach about disability history and identity in the month of October every year, but no resources were created to do that. And we thought, how powerful would it be to hear directly from students about what inclusion and respect and authentic acceptance and honoring of people with disabilities, disabled people, I use identity first language, what that would look like. And so hearing from students directly. And we had an opportunity with our partners from Rooted in Rights to film student storyteller videos. The first year we were able to do 2 videos. This past year we were able to do 4. And you're going to hear from 3 of the students that participated in that project. We're excited to get an update from them on where their lives are, as well as to get more information and their perspectives about how we can be responsive during this time of great change, both in terms of racial justice and the outcomes we would want to see there, as well as responding to COVID in our schools and what disability can teach us about that. Along with the videos that we created, we had 2 teachers, Sarah Arvey and Adina Rosenberg, who are joining us today, create a curriculum called the 1 out of 5 project to accompany it. And it's 5 lessons, which we have the link for on our website, that public K-12 schools in Washington, or any school in Washington or community group, can use. And they look at everything from how to act in solidarity with disabled people to Washington and US disability history, and through a lens of intersectionality. So right now we're going to take the opportunity, and I've provided the link here at the bottom of the screen for the 1 out of 5 project if you want to look at the full array of resources. We're going to watch the student videos of the 3 students we have here. And then in between videos, we'll have a chance for each of the students to introduce themselves briefly. So I'm sure you will love these videos and want to hear more from the students that we have, and want to know what your role is in moving this work forward. So thanks for joining us as we get that going.
1 out of 5, Disability History and Pride Project.
A young girl on the floor of her bedroom arranging things beside her bed, a large blue mermaid on her wall.
I felt like I was always the person, I don't know what the saying is, but I'm like the person looking in, wishing I was a part of everything, but I wasn't. I'm Angelina, and I'm 12 in 6th grade.
Angelina eats breakfast in the kitchen with family members nearby.
I live in Ferndale, Washington.
A single-family home in a quiet neighborhood.
I have 2 cats and 2 dogs.
Angelina pours cat food into a bowl.
And then we have 15 brothers and sisters, but not all live with us.
A wall of family photos. Angelina's brother points to people of different ages, races, and abilities.
My sister's sister, and that's my brother who's not here.
A lot of the time it's kind of hectic. I'm sorry to say, but it really is.
But the hard thing is getting out the door.
I kind of walk differently. Because of my disability, I move my hips side to side like this when I'm walking, but I don't mean to.
An adult places a pink wheelchair into a car. Angelina climbs in afterwards.
I have a wheelchair, and I have a walker, and I have forearm crutches coming. I've gone through mainstream school since I was in kindergarten.
Surrounded by kids with backpacks, Angelina gets into her wheelchair.
What happened was there's just a lot of drama. People saying really mean things about you. Yeah, they were about my disability. What I've experienced is people saying that I can't do things because I have a disability.
Angelina pushes towards a row of numbered doors. Next, her wheelchair empty outside a doorway.
The grown-ups at my school wouldn't do anything about it. It just really hurt me. I think that my parents were just done and thought it would be good to do homeschool. Those kids didn't understand that I could do the things that they could, and they just needed to give me a chance to try to be their friend, and I can be their friend.
Angelina exits a classroom and gets back into her wheelchair.
I can do things even if you think that I can't. I go to a school called MP3.
An awning with lettering, MP3. A sign reads, Meridian Parent Partnership Program.
It's a homeschool program. We go 2 days a week and then 3 days at home.
Angelina pushes to class with friends. A classmate holds the door as she enters on foot.
They're the nicest people I could ever meet. It's really accessible and everyone can get around, not just people who can walk on their 2 feet.
So we're showing you, this is Carrie, she, her pronouns. We are showing you clips of the videos today. We wanted to leave enough time for discussion, and you'll just have to watch the last minute and a half. We're gonna keep you in suspense, but they're at that link too. So I just wanted to welcome you, AJ. Thanks for joining us. Do you just wanna unmute for a second and tell us what grade you're in now? And I know last time we talked, where you were going to school was in limbo, like for many other people, but she just want to say hi right now, and we'll do panel later.
Hi, my name is AJ. I'm in 9th grade right now.
Great. And are you going to homeschool in the fall or in the next couple weeks, or what is the plan?
Yeah, I'm just gonna do homeschool.
Okay, that sounds good. It's a weird way to begin high school, but we're all finding weird ways of starting things, right? Are you ready for the next video?
Issaquah, Washington, grade 12.
Hi, my name is Anna. I live in Issaquah and I go to Issaquah High School. I am legally blind, so I have trouble seeing things from a distance and seeing small things like font and whatnot. But honestly, the biggest part of my disability is that it makes it really hard to connect with people.
Anna uses a white cane to travel.
And to like have a normal social life. So I think it's more of like a social disability than like a physical disability. I really don't have too many friends with disabilities. There's really not a lot of disability representation at my school, which makes it even harder because people just don't understand, right? They don't see a lot of people with disabilities, which is why I think it's so important to spread the word and like show that people with disabilities are just people, just like everyone else. I use a monitor connected to the front board that sits on my desk so that I am able to see what's in front of everyone else that's right in front of me, so I can like get really close to it. I also use enlarged papers, and sometimes I use Dropbox to type assignments because typing is faster. All the way through elementary and middle school, I decided not to use a cane just because I felt like I could memorize my way around the school, and it was kind of a barrier, right? I knew like, oh, if I have something that looks like I'm different from other people, then it's gonna be even more socially isolating. But then I decided in high school, second semester of senior year, that I would need to start using a cane in college, and I wanted to prepare and like get used to using it every day, like bringing it around, figuring out how to go downstairs with it and open doors with it, and that just like basic stuff. Sometimes I ask for accommodations from teachers, and for whatever reason they say no, or you know, it's too much work, that kind of thing. And so sometimes I'll do work without accommodations and show them like, look, I'm so capable of doing this, I can even do it without accommodations. And then they realize that, oh, like I am worth their time because I am like committed and I can do what other people are doing. And so maybe I'm worth their time in accommodating me, even if it takes a little bit more work, which I think is awful because like I don't understand why I have to go farther than every other student to prove that I am worth teachers' time. It's hard to like figure out what to do when advocacy doesn't work. I was selected by my computer science teacher as Computer Science Student of the Year. I began creating voice recognition software at Levi that helps out students with labs, science labs. So it'll record data for you based on voice commands, or it'll read parts of your procedure for you. And that's really what I was able to do with Levi, is take voice recognition software, take Java to Word document software, and put everything together to make a cool new program. I was able to present Levi in front of a whole bunch of different high schools and middle schools and show them off to the world. I'm just so happy that other people like see how valuable this kind of software could be, and I'm really hoping that it can make a big change in like how science labs are performed for everybody, but especially people who have disabilities.
Thank you, Anna, for that video too. Anna, do you want to share where you are right now and where you're heading maybe in a few days? I don't know if things have changed since last week.
Sure, yeah. Hi, I'm Anna. I am a freshman or not a freshman, I guess I'm a sophomore now at Brown University. And I am currently planning on learning from home this semester, but I'm still going to Brown.
Oh, this is Carrie. That has changed in a few
Yeah.
days. We're all becoming more and more flexible. I was wondering if one of our chat moderators wanted to just comment about the range of people and perspectives we have joining us today. I see we have 84 people online right now, which is fantastic.
This is Sarah, she, her pronouns. I'm one of the collaborators on the 1 out of 5 project, and it's super exciting to be scrolling through and reading your chats. We've got teachers with us today, parents of students with disabilities, disabled activists, thinking and talking about the ways that youth have really taught us to be present, as well as thinking about the future and how much creativity and innovation they bring to our spaces. And also thinking about how youth are often underestimated and how much what they know contributes to the world we live in.
I know that we have really been changed as adults in working with youth, and we've only had an opportunity through this project to work with 6 young people in Washington, but it's been amazing. It's given me a lot of hope about what we're doing. But as Adina has put in the chat, as you're watching these videos, feel free to post any initial questions that are coming up for you. We will be doing moderation of the Q&A, and then our wonderful chat moderators will be taking note of them and then sharing them with Clark so he can do some prioritization as well. And so we have our final student, Kanasa, to watch the video.
Grade 12.
Okay.
Kanasa at his piano.
I guess I could play something here. I'm Kanasa Sarka. I am 21 years old and I am a senior at Shorewood High School. I mean, I just tell people that I have a disability if they've noticed that it might take me a little bit longer to learn like a certain topic, especially hard in the beginning years of my child years. I didn't really know how to talk when I was 4 years old, 5 years old. There were a lot of tantrums. It took me a little bit longer to learn how to walk than the average person would. That's my autism pin there.
Kanasa points to his colorful autism awareness ribbon.
Somebody might act or be a little bit differently. It doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It just, it's more about understanding it from a different perspective. I like to swim, I like to run, I'm actually very active. Improving is, where it's at for me.
Shots of Kanasa performing improv theater.
I'm not really great at memorizing, but so I could improv, and part of that to me was improvise the emotions as opposed to the script. So that's where I could show my talent. The program is called Theater of Possibilities, and it also gives people with intellectual disabilities the right opportunity to act and show off their theatrical talent.
For Brutus is an honorable man.
This is Zan Sarka. This is my mom here.
Aloha.
Kanasa and his mom embrace.
Hoping to attend Bellevue College next year.
Shortly after his interview, Kanasa received a letter from Bellevue College. Kanasa's mom films him on an iPhone.
Wish me good luck. Now, this is a drum roll moment.
Okay.
Dear Kanasa, congratulations.
Oh my goodness, Kanasa! What do you have to say for yourself?
Exciting part of my life. I never thought I would make it to college.
Thank you.
Kanasa and his mom.
Just be patient. Hang in there. Just because we learn differently doesn't mean like we're not able. And I'm not saying that like all neurotypical people believe that, but I'm just leaving a message for the ones that maybe are naive to that point. Just be patient and, we'll get the hang of things.
I know, this is Carrie, we're cruel because we're leaving you without the last minute of the video, but we are trying to leave time for the youth panel. And we have 3 more videos too on our website. So at that link in the PowerPoint, as well as in the chat, you can watch all of them. And they're all amazing in under 5 minutes. And there's a discussion guide as well. So if you want to use it at work, I've used it and have crashed people's work lunches, not anymore though. And also I know we've used it with community groups, PTAs, state employees that have nothing to do with education. So that is my plug. Before I ask Kanasa to introduce himself and give us your update, because things, it's been a while since the video.
I think it's been a year, right? A year or more. All right, so I guess my introduction is I'm Kanasa. I'm now a sophomore in college. I just completed a year. I attend the OLS program at Bellevue College, which stands for Occupational Life Skills. And basically, that's a program that teaches students more about independent living skills and what else, how to get acclimated into the work environment, getting ready for the workforce. So like, for example, everybody who attends that program gets an internship by their 4th year. So I await to see what my internship will be.
That's great. Do you have something that you want to do as an internship?
I don't know.
Maybe it's early.
I want to go into customer service, hopefully, because my ability to communicate is like through the roof, which is why I did a lot of emceeing and stuff. So that's my interest.
Yeah, you're so expressive and so full of different kinds of talents, from musical to theater. So I love seeing all your faces, especially, or many of your faces, especially when we're watching the videos. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have the students and Clark leave on their videos, so it gets too confusing to find people popping up on various screens. So if we all turn off our video, we'll be able to focus on their visual images for the chat now that we're gonna go into, or the panel. Take it away, Clark.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah, those. How do you guys feel watching those videos with an audience again?
Well, as anytime that I've watched my video, I always feel embarrassed watching it, not in a negative way, but I just have a thing about watching myself talk, because it's just because of, like, my voice and stuff like that. So
It always sounds different in our own heads, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And Kanasa, has anything that you said in the video changed since then? Because I know, like, the way you feel about yourself, or Anna specifically, you talked about feeling like you didn't have too many disabled friends back in high school. And is that the same for you today?
Yeah, so since I've been in college, I joined a club called Disability Justice at Brown. And so I've actually been able to meet a whole bunch of other students from Brown and the neighboring Rhode Island School of Design who have disabilities. And so I feel like I have a much better understanding of, and like a general community that I belong to now that I have met friends who have disabilities and who I can really connect with.
Awesome. And Kanasa, as someone who didn't imagine you'd go to college at all, like you said in your video, how's the first year been for you? How did it stack up to what you imagined?
I would say the first year has been a combination of fun, but also very challenging, especially adapting from a high school environment. The work was harder, and I think advocating for myself, I mean, even though I'm pretty expressive, was still pretty hard during my first year in college, because I didn't know like how often I had to ask for help, because stuff just got that much harder. But it was also fun. I also seeked a lot of pleasure from it, made a lot of new friends, and sort of happy that it was in a smaller environment where it was easier. So
Great. Yeah. I think that transition can be really tricky, where oftentimes, when you're in high school and middle school, and you have your parents kind of over in the background, and teachers who are really there to kind of hold your hand along the way. It can be a big switch from when you leave high school and what comes next. How folks felt that their transition has been going so far? Do you feel prepared for being sent off into the world?
Yeah, I think my transition to college went really well, because I kind of came up with a plan of like how I was gonna view lectures and stuff ahead of time. I think on the advocacy front, it was harder, not because I didn't have like people, well, I guess a support system at first until I got into disability justice at Brown, but also just because I got the answer of like, oh, well, maybe I'll make your accommodation, or just more like obscure than what I had been used to in, like high school. So I think that was kind of a learning curve, but I feel like overall the transition to college went really well.
I'm glad to hear that. And how's adjusting to the current situation as far as the pandemic and learning remotely going for people?
Mm.
What are your thoughts, Ganasa?
Oh, you could tell I wanted to say something, huh? Well, it was really hard at first. In fact, I even heard stories that some of my classmates actually completely dropped out when the pandemic first started. And in some ways, I wish I hadn't heard that, because it just made dropping out for me that much easier. But I decided to stick through it, and now in a way, I'm kind of happy that I went through that hard experience, because it's sort of teaching me that I'm really adaptable to situations like this, and I'm thinking that I'm a lot stronger than I was before, so that sort of ups my confidence. So I don't know.
That's good to hear. That's good to hear. And AJ, I know you'd been in kind of like a hybrid school before, where you're at home sometimes and going to class a few days a week. So you're kind of really well prepared for this, huh?
I think what I'm going to be doing is full-time homeschool, so it will be slightly different.
A lot of difference all around. So I think all three of you have spoken about advocating. And we talk a lot. It's really easy for other people to say, like, you need to go out there and be advocates and tell people what you need, which we need to. I mean, I grew up with a disability myself. I use a wheelchair, and I always had to talk about accessibility of places that we went and transportation and all that. But I think sometimes it can be easy for folks to not understand what it's like to actually be the one with a disability asking for help yourself. So, how would you say, how have you felt, what's on the downside? Like, what are some of the insecurities maybe that asking for help brings up to you? And what are things that the people around you can do to maybe make that easier? AJ, I know you've talked about that before.
Well, what it has brought up for me in the past is embarrassness. I don't really know how people around me could make it better, but literally anyone can speak up about disability rights. So maybe that's a suggestion, even though they already do. I don't know.
Sorry, there you go. Okay. I think I had myself muted. Yeah, I was just going to say, AJ, I agree with what you said, absolutely, that we can all be allies and help each other and be accomplices, and not just let the one person have to deal with it on their own. If we see something, we can get involved now. Anna or Kanasa, either of you like to add about that? Anything there?
About what again? About the trend?
Sure, sorry. About how it feels to ask for help, and how sometimes that can be kind of like an embarrassing or an awkward thing, and what people could do to maybe make that less awkward and less embarrassing?
Mm. Well, I mean, for me, I mean, it's always sort of been easy, asking for help. But like I mentioned, when I transitioned to college, I mean, I noticed how much harder it was to ask for help because I was under the automatic assumption that I needed to know everything, or like psychologically, like inside, I thought I was kind of not the smartest, or I guess stupid if I asked for help a lot. So I think just telling yourself that there are people out there that can help you, and to not be afraid to ask for it. That would be my advice, basically.
Yeah, and to lead off of that, like if you do see something, and it's like if you see someone who you know or you are like somewhat close with, who is having an accommodation issue, right, and like needs help or needs support, like show up for them, be there for them. I had an accessibility issue at the beginning of my CS classes and stuff at Brown, and I I was shocked because I had like this whole group of people that showed up to help and support me through that. Like my lab partner, and then her roommate showed up, and just like all these people who cared, right? And so that I think just the act of being there is really, really powerful for support.
Absolutely. So, how do you think? What are some ideas you guys have about how we can encourage more people to be there? I think, social justice is something we talk a lot about these days, and what ideas do you have? Well, do you find that people understand that, access and inclusion isn't just about, doing nice things. It's about civil rights, and disability rights are is social justice. So how do you think we can help both mainstream, population understand that, and how can like teachers and the adults in our lives help people understand that disability rights are human rights?
I think that the thing that I think about first and foremost for like the general community is like we all probably know somebody with a disability, right? And those people are as part of the community as we are. I mean, we're human beings. And so like that's why they deserve respect, they deserve a voice. And from like a teaching perspective, like you care about your students, you care about your students' opinions. And that shouldn't change for students with disabilities. They're students too, they want to learn. And if you can help them learn by, making something more accessible, and even just like listening to what they have to say, what they're having trouble with, what they're succeeding at, that would be a great way to like just be there for them.
That's great. I love, and yeah, that one story about your computer science teacher who initially like didn't want to accommodate you at all.
Yes.
Well, I'll let you tell it real quick.
Sure. Yeah, this is a perfect example because I think the idea of listening to someone in the disabled community, there's two aspects to that. There's the inclusion aspect and there's the accessibility aspect. And so as an example, my very first CS class at Brown, I had a computer science teacher who, I wasn't really close with because lectures are so big and whatever. And I get like to my first lab, and the operating system is brand new to me, completely inaccessible. There's no documentation. And I'm like, oh man, I can't access any of this. And so I brought it up at a diversity forum. And my teacher took it upon himself to stand up in the middle of the meeting, yell, "This is not my problem," and walk out. And in that moment, there was two things that went through my mind. The main one was that, oh my gosh, this teacher doesn't care. And because this was my first CS class, I was like, the computer science department doesn't care about me. Like, this is so sad. Like, I was ready to drop out of computer science right there. But then the other thing that popped through my mind was that like, oh, well, if he's not going to help me, then like the accessibility of this system and like the computer science as a whole at this school like isn't going to get better because this teacher isn't going to help. And so that's why it's so important to listen to students with disabilities, because yes, we are students just like everybody else. And if you do listen and you make us feel like we are included, right, then A, we feel like part of the community, and B, maybe you can help us make things and just like the world in general more accessible. And so it's so important to listen to students with disabilities, just like you'd listen to any other student.
And there's also that other teacher who, after working with you, asked if you could help recruit other people who are like low vision and blind students in his course.
Yeah, that was back in high school. I that was my first ever computer science teacher, and at first he decided that he did not want to make any of my accommodations, and that was really sad because he was the only computer science teacher at the school. And I just sat there without accommodations and proved that I could do what everyone else was doing, which was not okay. Students shouldn't have to go through that. But eventually he came around and realized that I was able to do what any other student was able to do. And then he let me go off and like develop cool software and stuff and kind of make my own class, and realized that not only was I able to do what other people were able to do, but I also had a unique perspective on accessibility and making things that everybody can use, like different software that's accessible. And so then he was trying to get me to get some of my other friends with, like my very few friends with disabilities, to join his computer science class. But I think the point of that story is that like students shouldn't have to prove themselves to teachers, right? Like that shouldn't be an individual problem. That's a problem that should be conquered by like changing the attitudes surrounding disability so that students can just be students and don't have to worry about proving themselves to every single teacher they have.
Absolutely. And as far as like changing those attitudes goes, AJ, what do you think is important about, both students with disabilities and adults with disabilities and all of us telling our own stories? Why is that important?
Because telling your story helps in making change.
Absolutely. It's just that easy. Ganas, do you have anything you want to add to that? About why it's important for people to tell our own stories?
Because I think it would, I think it could encourage other people who may be hiding due to shame to share their stories and feel comfortable about it. And it also just teaches other people who may not be educated about disabilities more about yourself and get to know you and all that.
For sure. Education is really important. And I also find it helps, when stories are by people with disabilities, not just about people with disabilities.
Oh, yeah.
Because I think my understanding of my life is a lot different than somebody who doesn't have that experience,
Yes, exactly. I love it when people with disabilities write about their stories themselves because it's just so much more accurate. And I definitely would prefer reading about a story with people who have disabilities that was made by a person with disabilities. Because I've read stories and stuff like that about people with disabilities where the person who wrote it didn't have a disability, and sometimes it's just not as accurate.
Absolutely. Yeah, when it comes to media representation and disability, there's all kinds of bad examples we can point out to. But there are great examples at the 1 out of 5 video page, so please feel free to check those out and share them with your friends. What's happening here? Gary, you're sharing your screen right now. Oh, there we go. Yes, sorry. There's the page, I think. So going back, let me exit out here. Going back to our questions.
Sorry to be distracting. Sorry. I apologize.
So what like I said, we're during the COVID pandemic. What are some important supports that you find are making education more accessible for you guys?
For me personally, I feel like I feel like there's not necessarily like physical supports, but just having professors who are willing to be flexible and kind of listen to what the new issues are and like accommodate around that. That's really important. I think I really had a hard time last semester just because of the remote learning and trying to learn from home, but I had a really accommodating professor, and that's kind of how I got through it. So really just like listening to students, right? And listening to like what problems they're having and just try to help them like brainstorm. I think that's invaluable, that support.
Yeah, and also, uh, AJ, what you said earlier about, if you see something, you can speak up about it. I think sometimes it's great when people like recognize and anticipate our needs in advance too, right? Where it doesn't always have to fall on you to say like, "Hey, remember, uh, I need this. I need this PD."
Clark, you got muted again.
I think the host is muting me for some reason. Alright, I think I'm back.
I really am not muting you. I'm sorry. Maybe. Okay, go ahead.
So wait, did anyone hear anything I just said?
I
Fair enough. Okay, sorry. Yes, I was just saying, and in addition to having folks be flexible and listening to us when we bring up issues, it's also really helpful when sometimes they anticipate those issues too and think about that in advance, and they don't always rely on us having to bring it up. So, I think one last question from me, and then I'll let you guys, we can open it up to everybody else. So, where have you found people who accept you for who you are, and how has that been important to you? And that's something that comes up in a lot of your stories. And it doesn't just have to be disability spaces.
So I've personally found people through disability justice, but also through the LGBTQ community, who have been really supportive and who I feel comfortable talking to. And a lot of those people, like, they showed up for when I was having the CS trouble. And it's really great to just have the people who you feel like you can just like be open with and who support you. And I've definitely found that in college.
Awesome. How about you, AJ?
The question was,
what are some places, where have you found people who accept you for who you are? And why is that important to you?
well, I have found that in a number of places. There's a group for people with my disability in Washington, where we meet up a couple of times a year and just hang out. And we obviously can't really do that this year. But I feel really included there. And at camp called Camp Corey, it's a camp for kids with disabilities. And
I went to one of those growing up too.
Also, an LGBT camp that I went to called Camp 10 Trees. I think that's it. But I have a number of places where I can feel accepted. But some people don't always have that.
You're right. I think it's also important to, acknowledge that you get a lot of different support in a lot of different places. And Anna, you mentioned that as well, because, well, yeah, disability is a part of who you are. It's not all of who you are. So having, like queer space, like you mentioned about LGBTQ spaces, and, theater places, and computer science places, those are all great places to find people you connect with. Do you have anything else to add before we open it up to everybody?
Sure. I just want to quickly add, just being at a school where they accommodate people with learning with learning disabilities and other things. I think having that intimate community, I can talk to people who are just like me and where I understand what they're going through and they know what I'm going through. It's just made me more comfortable as a person, I would say. So.
Well, thank you guys. I'm now going to turn it over to Sarah. Avery has been keeping track of all the questions from all of our viewers at home. So, Sarah, what queries have you been sent your way?
Yeah, well, first of all, thank you, Clark, and thank you, Anna, AJ, and Kanasa. It is so incredible for me and for all the people who are chatting. Really great responses to your questions and answers. People are super excited to hear from you, and so thank you for sharing all of those stories. One of the questions that came up a couple times was around parents and caregivers and how they can best support young people in accomplishing their kind of immediate and long-term goals. What have been your all's experience in ways that the adults in your life can support you?
Have adults supported you?
For me, my parents never really were super involved. I think for me personally, like the adults in my life always kind of they pushed me to reach out to my professor or my teachers, and kind of like sometimes would help me brainstorm solutions to accessibility problems. I know, especially because we're all learning from home, like I guess adults and caregivers are kind of a bigger part of our learning experience. But I guess for younger students too, like maybe even just adults like reaching out to teachers to see what else they can do, accessibility advocates for the school, or like teachers like that. Just to kind of support, but also help the student like themselves guide them to like the solutions that will work for them in terms of like accessibility from home.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you. AJ, as you transition into high school, what are some of the things that you think teachers could do to help support you in the upcoming school year?
Well, I'm going to be homeschooled, so my teachers will be my mom and my dad and my sister. I don't really know of ways that they could help me.
What are some, because you've been doing some homeschooling and virtual learning before, what are some of the ways that virtual learning has been helpful to you?
I've done homeschooling. What do you mean by virtual learning?
Oh, like learning on the computer, like learning in virtual spaces, sorry.
Oh, they have, I think, I've done this program called Khan Academy where it has a bunch of subjects that you can learn on. And that's really helpful because they go into like they thoroughly go into the topics and they're easy to understand.
Yeah, nice. And Kanasa, you talked some about your program, and a couple people said it sounded really cool. Could you talk a little bit more about the program that you're in at Bellevue College and how it's been supportive of your learning? Whoops. I actually don't see Kanasa in his screen, but that's okay. There was actually a similar question, Anna, about your program and particularly around the Disability Justice Club that you were talking about. Do you think that that is something that could be taken up at younger grade levels, and what do you think that could look like?
Sorry, Arby, I was gone for a second. Would you mind to repeat the question?
No problem. No problem. I was like, okay, that's cool. Just, you had talked about how your program at Bellevue College was really supportive, and so a couple people had questions if you could talk just a little bit about that and what has felt best for you at that or in that program.
Sure. So, like I said before, OLS stands for Occupational Life Skills, and basically they go more in depth about teaching the student on how to live independently. For example, I took a class called Learning Strategies, where basically we go more in detail about disclosing our disabilities and when to do it at work and in personal situations. And they just go into an in-depth guide, and I felt like I've sort of learned a lot from that, because I know it's not always good to disclose it. And they also go into more in depth in like job, like for people who are seeking employment. They have programs for that as well, where they match you, or where you can get an internship on your 4th year. And basically a lot of the work and the homework is geared towards having that that base foundation for independent living. So that's what it is. Does anyone have questions?
No, I think that was great. And then we had, Anna, it looked like you had a response to the question that I was asking when Kanasa came back around disability justice and having disability justice programs even in younger grade levels. And part of disability justice is also thinking about racial justice and intersectionality. And so I was wondering if you could speak to that a little bit.
Sure, yeah. I know, and I guess just take this, like, I've only been at Brown for a year, so I don't know very much, but I know the Disability Justice at Brown program was founded because of, students having issues with accommodations and whatnot. But I think the idea of having that support directly at school that students can access, whether it's peers or maybe it's a club led by a staff member with a disability, right? And it's just there for students who want to have that like support from other students with disabilities. I think that would have been amazing to have throughout, like, especially like middle school and high school, when, we're kind of exploring our identities and we want to find groups where we fit in, which is very difficult as someone with a disability. So yeah, having that kind of just like a club, right? With maybe a staff member with a disability as an advisor at the school for people who, want that support. That would be amazing. And as for intersectionality, at Brown, we also have intersectionality coordinators, and we're trying to create workshops for like talking about those ideas. I personally haven't gotten very far into that quite yet, but I know, like, I think talking about intersectionality in schools and in like a disability curriculum, that would be that would be great. And I'm sure, I know 1 out of 5 does that, so.
Awesome, thank you. And AJ or Canasso, would you, even though you might not have had a disability justice club, Canasso, I know that the theater program was important as far as connecting with other people with disabilities. Were there moments there to think about intersectionality or racial justice? Or AJ, were you ever part of a program where they drew connections between different movements for social justice?
I would definitely say a combination of making my video with Rooted in Rights and also attending Theater of Possibilities made a great point for me playing a role in activism for social justice, because we made, actually, when I was in the what is it called, the Theater of Possibilities club, we made a lot of plays based on social justice and disability rights, where we made it fun, for example, where we made it an autistic world where neurotypicals are actually the minority and they could feel the reverse effects. So there was just basically a lot of stuff that we did that sparked question, and I think just the general bonding in that theater group, I think, sparked a good case for social justice and activism, in my opinion.
Awesome, thank you. And we were thinking of closing out. Were there questions that you all might have for each other? That you were thinking about as you heard one another talk today?
Sure, yeah, I have a question for Kanasa.
Yes.
Kanasa, what are your plans? Are you planning on doing remote learning, or what are your plans for this academic year, quarter, semester?
Well, we're not going back to campus during the fall quarter, so I'm going to be doing fall quarter online, and then after that, I don't know. It's unexpected on what's going to happen.
Do you feel prepared for that?
Yes, I feel a lot more prepared than I did last year.
Awesome. I'm going to turn it back over to Carrie to close us out. Thank you again, Anna and AJ and Kanasa. Working on this project with you all is so amazing. And I know you all have inspired me a lot. So thank you.
Me too. This is Carrie. Thanks so much. And one of the things I always forget to talk about is this is called the 1 out of 5 project because 20% of people in the United States have disabilities. And so we have to be listening to disabled people. They are all around us and have such amazing perspectives to offer. And it was really important to our project that disabled adults like Clark, like me, like Sarah, be involved. And we have wonderful allies as well that have supported the Disability Teaches Us series. So I just wanted to thank everyone today. We have Clark, Sarah, many Sarahs, Sarah Arvey, Sarah Butcher from Roots of Inclusion and SEL for Washington, Jen Cole from PAVE, Naomi Fair's been helping us from UW, Jordanos Rose and Stephanie from my office, Jennifer Carls from Roots of Inclusion, Adina Rosenberg. We have all these wonderful people that have been of such support in this work. We wanted to ask you to take our Survey Monkey and also just visit the project. So thanks so much. We really appreciate you, and we'll let you know when we have our next Disability Teaches Us.
Thank
Take
you
care.
so much.
Thanks, everybody. Awesome
Thank
work.
you.